What's up, y'all? Toya here, and I am back with another video for y'all. Before we get into the video, make sure you guys leave a like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Alright, y'all. It is finally time that we talked about this Spark app. I'm pretty sure some of y'all have been waiting for this video so I can give my honest thoughts on this app. So today, we're gonna go over 3 pros and 3 cons on the Spark app. So let's go ahead and get into the pros first. Pro number 1. Transparency. Now, I've said it many times before, and I'm gonna say it again. Transparency is always gonna be a pro in my book. So when you are picking up an order from Spark, it's gonna give you all of the details that you need to know in order to determine if it is an order that is worth it for you. So on initial glance, you're gonna see the basic information, the pay, the mileage, how many stops you're gonna have to do, and an estimated time of completion for the order. Now, if you wanna go ahead and get a little bit more detail, you can click into the order itself, and it'll give you details about the route, where you're gonna have to drive. You're gonna be able to see the address or addresses if it's a batch order, and see everywhere that you need to go to complete that delivery. On top of that, you're going to be able to view the items within that order as well. So that does sound all great and dandy, right? Well, yes, it does, but be careful. You don't want to go ahead and spend too much time analyzing these orders, because most of these are going to be first come, first serve. And if you're spending too much time analyzing the order and, seeing this and that, carried to 2 divided by 3 and all that, you ain't got time for all of that. So look at as much information as you need to, and hopefully that can go ahead and help you determine if it is an order that is worth it. Now, on that initial offer screen, when your offer comes up, there are little tags that are at the bottom of that order that can also help you determine if it's something that you want to take. So some of the tags, they could say something like apartment building, alcohol, perishable, if it's a bulky item or super heavy order, stuff like that. Those are just a few tags to kind of help you determine if it's something that you want to do, instead of having to go all the way into the order, analyze every little bit of information, and by the time you do decide, okay, looking at all of that, this looks good, the order's gone. So it does provide you quite a bit of information up front to help you determine if it is something that you want to take. All right, moving on to pro number 2. The pay. Now, I'm probably going to get some people rolling their eyes like the pay is not really that great. But honestly, it depends on how you work the app. So honestly, the pay is a bit better than some other apps that I have used in the past. It's not the best, but it's not the worst at the same time. Yes, there might be those orders where you look at it and you're like, yo, why would I accept this? I've seen some orders from Sam's Club, multiple stops, and it was under $1 per mile. I would never take that type of order. So yeah, you're gonna see some crappy orders from time to time. Not saying that they're all perfect, but you do have an opportunity to get some really good paying orders, especially for those shop and deliver orders. Most of those have pretty minimal driving, as most of the time you're going to be spending in the actual store doing the shopping. You could easily get a good $3, sometimes $4 a mile for those orders. And I feel like they do a pretty good job calculating the base pay for the orders, because there have been some orders that I've completed and they didn't have a tip, but the base pay still made it worth it. Like, there was this one order that I did, it was like $17, and I think I only had to drive maybe like 3 or 4 miles. So it was a huge order in the sense of it was a lot of groceries that I had to drop off, but I wasn't really tripping that I didn't get a tip, because $17 to drive 3 or 4 miles, that's really not too bad, like I said, for base pay. So yes, tips definitely can make things a lot more worth it, but considering that the climate that we're in with the tip culture and everything, I think they do a fairly good job trying to, make sure that your base pay is pretty worth it. Like I said, not in all cases, not trying to say every single order that you're going to see on this platform is, top tier. Definitely not saying that. But for the orders that I have taken, even without the tip, pretty good payout for base pay. Now, moving on to pro number 3, the incentives. So we talked about how great the pay can be, but now when you add these incentives on top of it, it takes it to a whole nother level. Now, when I first started Spark, it was around the holiday season, and they were throwing out incentives left and right. So I took full advantage of these incentives. Now, these incentives, they can vary. You can get an extra payout per order. You can complete a certain number of trips and get an additional payout once you hit that milestone. And on top of that, a lot of these can actually stack. Now, you do have to pay attention to the details on the incentives. I made the mistake of thinking that all of these incentives that I saw, they were stacking. But some of these incentives do have specific conditions that you have to pay attention to. So if you go into an incentive, it'll go ahead and give you all the details that you need to know in order to complete that incentive. So the best ones you're going to get are the incentives that count towards the entire zone that you're working in. So whatever order that you pick up, that order counts towards that incentive. Now, there are other incentives that only count towards certain stores. So you might see something like this and you might be like, oh wow, I just need to complete this many orders and I get that much. Well, that incentive only counts towards the Sam's Club orders. So things like that. Some incentives, they're only active during certain times of the day. So you might get a notification for an incentive popping up. It's noon, but it doesn't actually kick in until 3 o'clock. So little things like that you got to pay attention to. But a lot of these do stack. Like on a couple of my Spark runs, I had like 2 or 3 incentives stacked at the same time. And, I was able to go ahead and get an extra $50 in incentives off of 5 trips. Things like that. That's what makes it a lot more worth it. And that just adds on top of the pay that you're already getting. So take pretty good pay, pretty decent pay, and add an extra however many dollars that you made from incentives. You can make some pretty good money off of Spark, in my opinion. So all of this sounds great, right? Well, we need to go ahead and start talking about some of these cons. So starting with con number 1, the wait time. The wait time. Yeah, you can get a double whammy with this wait time. So let me explain. Honestly, you can find yourself waiting a lot in between orders. So best case scenario, you're leaving your house, you turn on Spark, you're heading towards a Walmart, and boom, you get an order from the Walmart that you're en route to. So you go ahead, you get there, you complete the order, whatever. Everything's cool, right? Now you're waiting, and you're waiting, and you're waiting, and you're waiting. There's literally a time when I was trying to get a certain number of orders for the day, and I waited a good hour and didn't get any types of orders. So yeah, you might get lucky and you get them back to back to back, but in a lot of cases, at least in my experience, you're going to be spending some time waiting in between orders. So how do you get around that? Honestly, it's going to be based off your market experience. I'm still trying to learn my market. I've only done about 30 Spark deliveries so far. Not really enough to really determine, which area is popping at what time and all of that. I'm kind of learning. But there's a lot of stores in my zone that, I still have to take into account. So, I'm kind of learning a little bit, but if you are not familiar with your own market, Spark does have a couple ways to determine, where it's going to be busy. And the first thing you're going to see, you have this little bar chart that's at the bottom, and it's just going to go hour by hour showing you how busy that zone is going to be. It's not specifying what store or anything like that. It's just saying, hey, around this time it's probably going to be popping off. Around this time it's going to be a little bit slow. I honestly don't really know how accurate this is. I've gone out in the morning on a Sunday morning and it was like super busy, like 8, 9, 10 o'clock. I went out there and I think I got like 1 or 2 orders. A lot of wait time in between. So, it's kind of hard to gauge. Now, the other thing, you can look on the map and it shows the icons for the stores and you'll see like this little aura around the store. If it's orange, that means that it's moderately busy. And if it's red, that means that it's really, really, really busy. And you can make a decision and you can go to those stores and, see if you're able to go ahead and get some orders. So I'll go ahead and get into that in the next con. So just bear with me. Now, let's just say you went ahead and you got an order. You're like, cool, let me go ahead and pull up and park in this parking space. And I'm going to wait for the associate to come out with whatever I got to drop off, right? So you're waiting and you're waiting and you're waiting. And before you know it, it's been about 15 minutes. You could potentially spend a lot of time waiting at curbside pickup for those associates to bring out what you need to deliver for that order. So one good thing is they do compensate you for the wait time. You get a notification at 10 minutes. I noticed that at 10 minutes of waiting, you'll get this notification. Notice you've been waiting, you'll go ahead and get extra pay, blah, 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 blah. Your time is valuable, right? Which is cool. I appreciate that. If you're talking about going on 20, possibly 30 minutes, that ain't really worth it no more. So yeah, sometimes you can be waiting a bit, and this is really what slows down, you being able to get a lot of orders. So between the wait time and between the orders itself, you have the wait time of waiting for that associate to bring out the merchandise for you to deliver. And it sucks because there's not really anything that you can do. It's not in your control. You're at the mercy of the store associate. Yeah, potentially missing out on other orders because you're sitting there waiting and waiting and waiting. You could have been delivered that order if they came out within 2 or 3 minutes, but you're still sitting there in a parking space just waiting. So yeah, that kind of sucks. All right, moving on to con number 2, the travel. So let's take a step back really quick. So remember when I mentioned that you're waiting for an order to get sent to you, and you look on your map and you see there's another Walmart in your zone that's supposedly busy, right? It's super busy, it's red, you've been eyeballing it for a little bit. You're like, you know what, maybe I have better luck. Let me travel to that Walmart. And it could be, 5-6 miles, it could be 10 or 15 miles, it just depends on how your zone is laid out, right? So you get there to that Walmart. Best case scenario, when you're en route, you'll get an order sent to you. I've had that happen to me. Worst case scenario, you get there, you pull up, you park, you open up your map, you realize that store is not showing busy anymore. That has also happened to me. So traveling plays a huge part in this. So just like this example I just gave you, you see that another area is busy, you get over there and there ain't nothing going on no more. You just wasted however long it took you to get there and you still didn't make any progress. What's worse is if you go to this other Walmart and you look back at the Walmart you just came from and now that one's busy. That's just like a slap in the face. But that's the thing with this map, which is, I guess you can consider it another con, but it kind of ties together with both of these. I don't really think that it's that accurate because there have been times that I've sat in a parking lot where it shows that it's super, super busy. I sat there for like 15-20 minutes and I got nothing at all. So I don't really know how accurate this is. Maybe somebody else can let me know if they've experienced that same thing. But for me, I can go off of the map and sometimes, yes, it is accurate. It's really busy. I'm getting orders back to back to back. But there are some cases I'm in the parking lot, it's red. Nothing. So it kind of screws up a lot of things with, like I said, if you're traveling to another store and it's still showing that it's busy and you're not getting anything, you're like, yo, what's going on? So just something to point out. But back to the travel and everything. So like I mentioned, traveling to and from different stores and everything. The other thing you have to consider is travel between orders as well. So obviously when you're picking up an order, the information that it's giving you is from point A to point B. So if you're getting an order and it's like $15 and it says you have to drive 7 miles, you're like, okay, that's $2 a mile, right? Not really, because once you drop that off, you're gonna have to make a decision. Do I go back to the Walmart that I just came from, or do I go to another location and try to get an order from over there? And depending on where the drop off is, you might be near another Walmart, you might be near Sam's Club or another store or whatever. But if you decide to go back to that same store that you just came from, you essentially just did $1 per mile. So $15, 7 miles, $2. But if you decide to go back, now you drove 14 miles for $15. You see what I'm saying? So usually if I am picking up an order, I'm trying to make sure that it is at least $3 a mile if I can help it. Sometimes you can't be too picky, especially if you are doing incentives. And that's the other thing. If you are doing Spark during the incentives, it can go ahead and even out at the end of all of it. So if you want to go ahead and take those, offers that may be less than ideal, if you're doing it for the incentives, once you get paid out, it kind of makes it a bit more worth it. But that is something that you do have to consider, is the travel time and the travel distance in between each order and, just going from store to store. All right. And last but not least is con number 3, canceled and bugged orders. Now, luckily, I haven't experienced this lately, but when I first started getting into Spark, this was a very common occurrence, and I put this on my list of cons immediately. So like I said, it's been cool since, but it's something that could probably happen from time to time that I just have to point out. So like I said, it's canceled and bugged orders, and I don't know if they're technically considered both bugged orders, but I'll just give an example of both. So there was one instance where I was doing Spark. I think this was like probably the second or third time I was doing Spark, and I'm chatting it up with my husband. So I pick up this one order and I'm like, oh, okay, cool, I got this. I send him a screenshot of it, and he's like, okay, cool, and pull up to the parking space, and I'm waiting, and I'm waiting. And 10 minutes go past, and I'm like, dang, okay. Oh, I got the notification saying that, I'll get payment for waiting. So I'm like, okay, cool. That's the first time I have seen that. And I'm waiting, and I'm just sitting there talking. I'm talking, just chatting it up. We just having a good time, just chit-chatting. So I'm like, hey, yo, what is going on? I'm up here waiting for a whole order and ain't nobody came out. So I was going through the app and trying to figure out, I'm like, okay, what is going on? And I saw the cancel order option. So I went through and I was like, okay, I don't want to cancel it if it's going to affect me negatively because, I'm still pretty new. So I contacted support and they're like, oh, okay, yeah, if it's been 30 minutes, don't worry, you can drop it. No penalty to you. So they dropped it on my behalf and everything was cool. So I'm like, all right, bet. Literally the moment I was about to pull out of the parking space, the same order popped up and I'm like, hold on. So I picked up the order again and I'm like, I don't know if I should have done that. So I flagged an associate and I was like, hey, I was waiting for the same order earlier for like 30 minutes and then I dropped it and it popped back up and it's here. So like, do you guys have this? Like, is there like a delay or whatever? And so the guy's looking it up. He's like, yeah, no, we don't have a record of that order. I'm like, so I've just been sitting here this whole time for nothing. And granted, I got a majority of the pay for this order. I think the original payout was like 14 or 15 bucks. So I ended up getting like $11 of it, which I guess is, whatever. It just sucks that I wasted 30 minutes of my time. But yeah, so there have been a few cases where there have been orders that keep popping up. They keep popping up, and they're bugged. And the associates don't have a record of it. So, I've had support tell me, they're like, hey, if you ever come across this again, don't pick it up as a bugged order. There's really nothing that they can do. They can't remove it, I guess, for whatever reason. I don't know why, but it's just a bugged order. So on top of that, you also have orders that can keep getting canceled. And I had a couple different instances of this. So there was one where I picked up, I was sitting in the regular parking lot of a Walmart. I picked it up. I was like, all right, cool. Let me go drive over to the pickup spot. And literally the moment I was about to turn into the spot, I get the notification saying trip canceled. I'm like, bro, I just got over here. I'm like, okay, I'm like halfway in a parking spot. I'm like, oh my God. So I'm like, let me go ahead and head back to where I was. That same order popped up again. I'm like, bro, don't tell me there's another bugged order. So I picked it up again and I was in the parking space. So I marked myself as arrived and I was in the parking space. And I'm like, okay, I guess it's going to stick this time. Nope, got canceled again. But at least this time I got some pay for it. I got like $2 and some change. So I'm like, bro, come on. And some of those orders I just ignore. I think there was one instance where there was an order that got canceled and I picked it up again and it actually stuck. So like I said, I don't know if that's considered a bugged order or what, but it cancels on its own. So at least with that, you don't have to waste your time waiting 10-15 minutes and waiting for nothing and it's a whole bugged order. And real quick, they say that if you've been waiting for 30 minutes for an order, you can drop it with no penalty to your account. I think 30 minutes is way too long. That needs to be brought down to at least 15 minutes because literally waiting a whole half an hour to pretty much get nothing, like you could have at least done another order somewhere else and like kind of made up for that time that you lost waiting. But no, 30 minutes, no, that needs to be at least 15 max. So yeah, there have been some cases where I unfortunately had to drop an order because they took way too long and I'm like, I'm not gonna be sitting around for 30 minutes. I feel like that's too long of a wait time in my opinion. So just thought I'd throw that out there. But yeah, like I said, personally, I haven't had any bugged or canceled orders since the new year started. Hopefully it stays that way. But when I first started doing Spark, before the new year, pretty much every single time I went out there, I had some type of bugged or a canceled order. You know, it was guaranteed at that point. So I felt like I should add it regardless, even though it's been pretty cool lately. But, you know, just to let you guys know that there's a possibility of that happening. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much it. That's pretty much all I got for Spark. Now, what do I think about it? So here's the thing. I got a lot of people talking about, like, you know, it's terrible in their market, this and that. They don't know why I'm putting so much high praise with this app. Listen, a lot of these apps, most of the time it's going to be market based. You know, there might be an app that I've done myself that's terrible in my market, but there might be somebody else thriving on it. You know, just because, you know, you had a bad experience with it doesn't mean that my experience is going to be bad. You know, it's just going to vary. But so far, my experience has been pretty good. And keep in mind that I'm also using the apps to my advantage as far as me trying to profit the most. So the only time I'm going out and doing Spark is when there's incentives. So yeah, if you're going out and just doing Spark just to do Spark, no incentives, you're just doing bare Spark, yeah, it may not really be that great for you because you're not really going to be bringing in any additional money on top of your initial pay that you're getting for those orders. But like I said, so far, I really haven't had too many complaints other than what I mentioned today. And, you know, like I said, it could just be market based. It could be market based. Like, matter of fact, shout out to Jerome on Cars and Cribs, because even though we're not in the same exact area, but he's done Spark, and he's done Spark in the Chicagoland area and a bit further up north. But, you know, from watching his videos, he seems like he had a great time as well. And yeah, technically we're kind of in different markets. Like, he's north, I'm south, but, you know, he's also expressed that he made a lot of money on that platform as well. And, you know, I'm pretty much saying the same thing. So like I said, yes, it has its pros and cons. That's the whole purpose of going over these apps and talking about their pros and cons, because there's not going to be one perfect app. You know, there's going to be great things about the app and there's going to be bad things about it. And you just kind of got to weigh out, like, which one's going to be worth it. You know, is it worth dealing with all those cons because the pros are more worth it? Or is it just too much of a hassle that those cons, they outweigh the pros? So that's why we talk about it. So like I said, you know, for me personally, you know, the way I'm working the app, it definitely works for me. So for some people, they might consider it a filler app. They might want to be on the app all day. You know, it just kind of depends on their market, how they're working the app, all of that. So I'll leave that up for you to decide whether or not you think this app is worth working on. So yeah, that's really all I got, y'all. That's really all I got. So before I go ahead and let you guys go, I have to remind you guys to leave a like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you do not miss a video. But I'm gonna go ahead and get up out of here, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'm gonna catch you guys on the next one. And as always, stay safe out there and keep grinding.